As activists protest, 12 countries signed the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Deal in New Zealand, and Haiti's opposition rejects the president's proposal for a transitional government. Those are the headlines. My name is Reagan, Vignes, and welcome to From the South. Free trade on steroids. That's how some activists have described the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is now being signed by 12 member countries in New Zealand. Mexico and Peru are the two Latin American countries already involved. In both countries, as well as the United States, protests have been building up for months against the trade deal, which social movements see as a charter for rights for corporate interests.
In the United States, the middle class has fared terribly under past trade agreements like the TPP. What that has meant is that jobs have been offshored. And there are incentives in the TPP that would increase offshoring of U.S. jobs.
It's a treaty that was negotiated in secret, a treaty negotiated behind civil society's back, and even behind experts' backs. That on one hand, on the other hand, the way it has been negotiated promotes corruption, since it gives privileges to international lobbies, to multinational corporations' lobbies.
And in the United States, opposition to the TPP is also strong. With more from Washington, we turn to our correspondent, Bianca Perez.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, also known as the TPP, is to be signed Wednesday in New Zealand at 11 a.m. local time. Throughout the day here in the United States, specifically in Washington, D.C., we have seen protests beginning in the morning. There was a protest showcasing how the TPP will affect the different sectors of the population. The protesters are demanding an immediate stop to the TPP. They are asking Congress not to ratify it. Let me remind you that after it is signed today by all of the 12 countries that are involved in this negotiation, it begins a 2-year process to be ratified. It has to go through legislative processes in all of the different countries. That, of course, includes the U.S. Congress, where it has met with a lot of opposition. So it will be interesting to see if this will actually pass the Congress. The protesters who also held a protest outside of the White House were demanding that, the Congress takes the word of the people and puts the interests of the people before those of the large corporations, which is what they think the TPP actually represents. We, of course, will continue to follow this story and see how the ratification process goes and bring you all of that information. Bianca Perez, teleSur's, Washington, D.C.
Colombia is not one of the countries signing the TPP trade deal in New Zealand, but its government has expressed its interest in joining. And as Natalia Marguerite reports, some opponents believe the government is merely trying to deflect public opposition.
We have successfully concluded.
When 12 Pacific Rim countries agreed on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, in October 2015, Colombia slipped out of the picture. The country's absence might have seemed surprising, but it is far from meaning a lack of interest in the world's largest trade agreement.
Colombia was not really left out. What President Santos in fact did was even worse than that. He didn't even negotiate the terms of Colombia's entry, and now he will simply accept what has already been agreed and signed by those who are now part of the TPP.
Colombia has already signed 13 free trade agreements. The country's industry and agriculture have felt the impact as imports grow while exports fall, a situation that is getting worse with a Colombian peso that has reached a historic low.
If the government begins to announce aim to join the TPP, it will face opposition and criticism from important productive sectors. That's why the government is keeping the TPP issue quiet, to avoid people's discontent and public debate on the disastrous consequences that such agreement will bring to Colombia's economy.
Social sectors have not only expressed their concerns about the effects that the TPP will have on Colombia's already fragile economy. They are also worried about its impact on the region.
The TPP is a way to undermine regional agreements such as UNOSUR or Mercosur. What the TPP agreement is attempting to create is a new bloc in which the United States can exercise the economic and ideological control that it doesn't have over the current regional alliances.
With one of the world's most devaluated currencies and a rising inflation that last year ended at over 6%, critics of the free trade model believe the government will have a hard time to justify what the benefits of the TTP agreement will be. Natalia Margarita, telesur, Bogotá.
Colombia's head of state is in Washington to talk about the peace process. President Juan Manuel Santos arrived on Tuesday night and is due to meet President Barack Obama on Thursday. The meeting is billed as a celebration of 15 years of U.S. financial and military aid known as Plan Colombia. Unconfirmed reports suggest the Colombian leader will ask for a new package of $5 billion to ensure security after a peace deal is signed. The FARC guerrillas have issued a statement asking the U.S. government to invest more in peace. The guerrillas, speaking from Havana, explained that the U.S. has been part of the Colombian conflict, allocating thousands to Plan Colombia and military aid to fight the guerrilla groups. The FARC is demanding now that Washington focuses its attention towards helping the victims and towards building peace. Peace talks with Colombia's second guerrilla group, the ELN, are still on hold. Social movements are demanding that the government put aside its differences and open formal public negotiations as soon as possible. No, sir. Haiti's opposition has rejected President Michel Martelly's proposal to form a temporary transitional government to organize the postponed elections. The opposition instead is demanding that Martelly step down before new elections take place. Mercosur's health ministers gathered in Montevideo to unite in the battle against the Zika virus, while Chile confirmed its first 3 cases in the mainland. On its side, the World Health Organization has expressed concern over the first sexual transmission of the virus. At the meeting, the director of the Pan American Health Organization, Carissa Etienne, warned that fumigation alone is not as effective as believed.
Fumigation can be effective for reducing the adult population of the mosquitoes. So fumigation is not effective against the other forms of the mosquito, like larvae, for instance. Therefore, fumigation has limited effect.
Former Peruvian presidents Alan Garcia and Alejandro Toledo and current Ollanta Humala will be called to testify over a bribery scheme. Authorities are investigating the politicians due to their links to a Brazilian company that admitted paying bribes to the Peruvian state to earn contracts.
Señora Ana María Sánchez.
Truckers in Bolivia continue protesting a new tax hike imposed by the government on utilities. The truckers have blocked several important highways that connect Bolivia to neighboring countries. President Evo Morales has warned that the strike seems to be a political move by the opposition, and it comes when the country is preparing for a referendum to modify presidential term limits later this month. This week, the new government in Argentina reopened negotiations with the vulture funds, or holdout creditors, who refused to accept a renegotiation of the country's debt. It is another sign of the sharp shift towards neoliberal policies made by President Mauricio Macri during less than 2 months in office. Leo Pobletti explains from Buenos Aires.
In just 7 weeks, the right-wing government of Mauricio Macri has completely changed Argentina's strategy in the conflict with the vulture funds. The first change was to accept Daniel Pollack as the mediator put forward by Judge Tomás Griesa. The previous government, led by Cristina Fernández, had criticised Pollack for being biased in favour of the vulture funds.
Argentina is today taking a second offer into the negotiations with Pollack. The first proposal was made back in June 2014 by the former economy minister Axel Kilikov, when he asked for a repeat of the 2010 debt swap arrangement, with the same terms and conditions. That remains the only legal offer that Argentina is authorized to make, because it has been authorized by the National Congress.
That proposal was rejected. Now the new government here in Buenos Aires is making a second offer, which is completely at odds with the one made by the previous administration. Critical economists say the future now looks bright for the vulture funds, but very bleak for the Argentine people.
Let's not forget that this entire issue with the vulture funds and this new strategy of recognizing the claims of what are basically global speculators has to do with the government's urgent need to obtain foreign loans, or to put it more simply, to lead Argentina back down the path of over-indebtedness which we had left behind.
The vulture funds want to be paid back in full, and experts say they will settle for nothing less, especially now they have the pro-business Macri government at the other end of the table. Argentina is potentially looking at having to pay out a staggering $20 billion to some of the world's most disgraceful financial predators. That's over 2/3 of Argentina's reserves. Such a sum would push Argentina back into debt and again put in jeopardy its all-important financial sovereignty.
This scenario puts Argentina into a situation of real economic and financial risk, and clearly affects its responsibilities of continued economic development. Moreover, we shouldn't forget this comes together with a whole set of aggressive economic policies which have been adopted by the Macri government.
On top of this bleak outlook in the battle against the vulture funds, which could mean losing billions of dollars in public funds, which took years to earn, the Argentinian people face a year of high inflation, wage cuts and unemployment. Leo Poblete, TeleSur, Buenos Aires.
The United Nations has suspended Syria's peace talks that were taking place in Geneva after some disagreement between opposition groups. However, the United Nations envoy to Syria said this is not a sign of failure.
I've therefore taken this decision to bring a temporary pause. Temporary pause. This is not the end and it's not the failure of the talks. Why? They came and they stayed. Not only, but both sides insisted on the fact that they are interested in having the political process started. 3, I've already fixed a date for the next talks, 25th of February.
And the Syrian government has opened Damascus to humanitarian aid. The move comes as the United Nations is urging all warring factions in the country to allow aid into their territories. With more on this story, here is our correspondent Hazem Abdullah.
The International Rescue Committee, in cooperation with the Arab Red Crescent, delivered today about 5,000 baskets of humanitarian aid to the civilians in Al-Ma'damiyya in west of Damascus.
International Committee of the Red Cross.
With the Syrian Arab Red Crescent.
Yesterday, the Syrian Arab Red Crescent, with the support of the International Committee of the Red Cross, managed to deliver food and hygiene kits to the people in Al-Tel. We are still waiting for the permissions to be granted to deliver more humanitarian aid to Madaya, Fua and Kefraya. But these are only the examples. There are more places in this country, not only around the city, but across the country where the humanitarian aid is not reaching the people in need. And as I see, you have here women and children. Many of those women are fainting, many of them are very tired, very hungry. The people are telling me that they haven't eaten for 5 days, or they had to eat water with the spices. This cannot really continue. I think it cannot.
As we know from the sources, that this not the stage from many stages to deliver humanitarian aid, and at the same time about 7,000 of humanitarian aid baskets to Attal, residential place in northeastern of Damascus city. Hazem Abdullah from Al-Ma'damiyya, west of Damascus.
Another fire in a Bangladeshi clothing factory has renewed fears of the industry's lack of safety. 4 people were injured in the incident. The factory produces for U.S. corporations such as H&M and JCPenney, among others. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has raised concerns over the situation of a Palestinian journalist who has been on a hunger strike for over 2 months. Mohammed Al-Keek is protesting against his administrative detention in an Israeli jail. Israel says Al-Keek is being held because he is a threat to security. However, all evidence against him has so far been withheld. The time has come for Kurds to hold a referendum on statehood in Iraq. That's according to Iraqi Kurdish leader Masoud Barzani. He is claiming that his people have gained international sympathy from fighting the self-proclaimed Islamic State group. Players of the Brazilian soccer club Sao Paulo FC were screened for the Zika virus by Peruvian health authorities as they arrived in the city of Trujillo. The players and many of their fans are in Peru ahead of the Copa Libertadores game. After the screening, a local physician said that all the players were healthy. For more on these and other stories, please visit our website, telesurtv.net/English. For TeleSur English, my name is Vignes. Have a great evening.